Vietnam announced its road plan to open certain areas of the country to international tourists by December 2021. And the whole country is expected to open by June 2022. I'm excited to talk with you about Vietnam in this video, the country that definitely had a difficult time over the past months. Just having a look at Saigon, also known as Ho Chi Minh City, the country had a prolonged lockdown lasting for a total of 3 months. Nobody in the city was allowed to go outside of their home, and it was a very challenging time for the residents, including foreigners in Ho Chi Minh City. This past week has really been the week of Southeast Asia, because not only Vietnam, but also Cambodia, Malaysia, Bali and India have all announced their reopening plans for this year and the coming year. All countries are moving away from a zero COVID policy to a policy that is predicated on opening up the country in stages and in a safe manner. Having a look at the facts about Vietnam's reopening of this year, not all places will be allowed to open, but from what we know, Halong Bay, Hoi An, Nha Trang and Dalat are all planning to open up to international and local tourists as soon as December 2021. And the main reason why the government, the country, wants to open up these places first is because they're currently vaccinating the majority of the population in these places, and they want to open up once they have vaccinated 90%. I think that's the number, 90% of residents of these places. What's the situation like for foreigners looking to visit any of the mentioned places this year? In order for you to get into the country, you are required to be fully vaccinated by any of the approved vaccines by the Vietnamese government. So if you're not vaccinated, you probably will not be able to visit as a tourist this year. It also appears that you need to have a negative PCR test prior to boarding the plane. There's no mentioning of any quarantine requirement. So this is good news for the fully vaccinated people who don't mind doing the PCR test, but would mind doing the quarantine upon arrival in Vietnam. As of right now, only Vietnamese citizens, permanent residents, and highly skilled workers are allowed to enter the country. But don't worry, this is about to change for the better. Having a look at the current vaccination numbers and statistics, it appears that Vietnam is on track to vaccinate 90% of its population by spring of 2021. As of right now, 25% of Vietnam's population is fully vaccinated, and given the current vaccination speed, it looks like every 3 weeks, 10% of the population will be vaccinated, which indicates that it will take roughly 20 to 22 weeks before most Vietnamese and also foreigners in the country will be vaccinated. These massive vaccination efforts across the board are vital for Vietnam to reopen its border to international tourists. While tourism does not account for 100% of Vietnam's gross domestic product, it does account for a decent amount, which is important. I think it's about 12% of its gross domestic product is derived from tourism. Now, 12% is a lot. You know, if you have to consider how many jobs are tied to the tourism industry. We're not just talking about hotels, resort-related jobs. We're talking about like taxi drivers. We're talking anything, you know, like nightclubs, bars, restaurants, and also massage parlors. All these businesses will not be able to make a lot of money if tourists are not allowed to enter the country. So yeah, the past week has been the week of Southeast Asia, where we had a lot of amazing news, and many people are getting excited because they are anxiously waiting to get back to the continent to spend time with their girlfriends, friends, and family. Here are my final thoughts. There's a lot of you that are now sitting on their hands waiting for the country to open up, and maybe also interested in going to other countries. Something you have to consider is that this is just an estimate. It does not mean that things cannot change. In fact, from what we have seen from other countries, things can change very rapidly in this pandemic world. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see the government push back on its reopening plans. It really all depends on how quickly people are being vaccinated. As soon as the vaccination goals are reached, it is going to happen. People will be allowed into the country again, and things will normalize, including the opening of most, if not all, businesses, and it's going to be very much the same as it was pre-pandemic. Something you have to consider that if you go to Southeast Asia, if you go to Vietnam, there's no guarantee that you will not have problems. What do I mean by that? Well, if a new variant pops up, new restrictions may be put in place. In fact, old restrictions could very well be reinforced, and it may not be the experience that you wished for. It's really important that you take that into account because we are living in a time of great uncertainty. We're living in a time when things are really out of our control. Now, I'm not saying this to scare you. I also want to go back to Southeast Asia, but I'm unwilling to quarantine myself. Based on how things have been progressing over the past weeks, I think it is realistic to say that Southeast Asia will be back very soon. When do you think Vietnam will open up its borders to international tourists? Do you think the reopening plans are realistic? What's the situation like in Vietnam? Are you in Vietnam right now? Leave a comment below and let us know. I got 2 recommendations for you. 1, I showed a video on the safest and cheapest countries in the world. This video contains hidden gems. If you want to find out what these places are, then I highly recommend that you watch the video that appears right here. 2, I shot another video on countries without entry restrictions. This is a goldmine. If you want to travel as if the pandemic never happened, you don't need to do any testing, you don't need to undergo quarantine, no vaccine required. If you want to find these places, then this is the video that you want to watch right now. Make sure to subscribe and turn on alerts to receive a notification when I upload the next video on digital nomad locations, travel updates, and visas. Thank you for watching.